My name is Allison Turner. I'm 29 years old, and this is the story of how my own sister destroyed my peace with one lie, and how karma brought everything full circle. If you enjoy real-life stories like mine, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. Brief pause. Music softens. For most of my life, I believed family was everything. And for years, that belief revolved around my older sister, Rebecca. Rebecca was the golden child, the one who always seemed to have everything under control. The good job, the perfect smile, the charm that made everyone adore her at family gatherings. Mom would always say, "You should learn from your sister, Allison. She knows how to handle things." And I tried. I really did. But no matter how hard I worked, no matter how much I helped, I always ended up in Rebecca's shadow. I remember one Thanksgiving. I spent 2 days cooking. Turkey, mashed potatoes, pie, everything. But when everyone sat down, Mom smiled at Rebecca and said, "Honey, this meal is wonderful." Rebecca just smiled and said, "Well, Allison helped a little. That was my place. The helper." Never the achiever, never the favorite. Still, I didn't hold it against her. She was my sister, and I loved her, genuinely. When she went through her divorce 2 years ago, I was the one who drove to her apartment at midnight with takeout and tissues. I was the one who helped her pack up and move back home to Mom's house. And when Daniel and I got married, I even offered Rebecca a room in our new place until she got back on her feet. She said she didn't need it, that she'd manage. At the time, I admired her pride. But looking back, that pride was a storm waiting to break. It started small, little jabs, subtle comments. She'd say things like, "You're so lucky Daniel puts up with you working late." Or, "Mom said Daniel looked distracted the other day. Are you two okay?" At first, I brushed it off. Sisters tease each other, right? But then things started to feel different. Mom would call me sounding uneasy. "Allison," she'd say, "Rebecca told me Daniel's been seen with someone at the gym. Is everything all right?" I'd freeze, confused. Daniel barely had time to breathe between work and helping me with my projects. When I confronted Rebecca, she just smiled. "Oh, come on, Allison. I'm just looking out for you. Don't be so sensitive." That was her favorite word, sensitive, as if caring about your own life meant you were fragile. One evening, Daniel and I were at Mom's for dinner. The air felt off. Everyone was quiet. Then Mom said it, softly but clearly. "Allison, we need to talk. Rebecca told me she found messages between Daniel and another woman." The world stopped. I stared at Rebecca. Her face was calm, her eyes downcast, like she was pretending to hate being the bearer of bad news. "What messages?" I asked, my voice shaking. She handed me her phone. There were screenshots, Daniel's name, a woman's picture, and words that looked intimate, except the contact name was Daniel T., and my husband's phone number ended with 34. This one was 24. It wasn't him. It wasn't even close. "Rebecca, this isn't Daniel," I said. "You know this isn't him." She tilted her head. "Allison, please, don't embarrass yourself. I'm just trying to help you face the truth." Daniel stood up, angry, but controlled. "Rebecca, you're lying," he said. "Those aren't my messages. You've always hated that Allison found happiness." Rebecca's face hardened. "Maybe you're the liar." Mom yelled for everyone to calm down, but the damage was done. That night, my mother, the woman who raised me, told me she needed space to think things over. Rebecca convinced her that Daniel was manipulating me, that I was too emotional to see the truth. By the next morning, Rebecca had spread the story to every relative she could reach. I woke up to texts like, "Are you okay? He really cheated? You deserve better." Daniel tried to hold me, but I was shaking. I couldn't even cry, not yet, because when someone you love betrays you, it hurts. But when your own sister betrays you, it destroys something deeper. 2 days later, Rebecca showed up at our apartment. She said she was checking in, but her tone was smug. Then she dropped the final blow. "Mom doesn't want you at the house for a while. She says you should figure things out with Daniel before visiting." I stared at her, speechless. I hadn't done anything wrong. And yet, I was the one being kicked out of my own family. I felt a coldness I'd never felt before. "Rebecca," I said, my voice low. "Why are you doing this?" She smiled faintly. Sometimes people need to see who they've really married before it's too late. Then she left, just like that. That night, I packed a small bag and drove to Daniel's parents' house. He tried to comfort me, but I could tell he was angry too. Not just at Rebecca, but at how easily my family had believed her. I remember lying awake that night, staring at the ceiling, thinking, this is what betrayal feels like. Cold, empty, familiar faces turning into strangers. Weeks passed. Mom barely called. When she did, it was short, awkward. Rebecca had filled her head with so much poison that nothing I said mattered. So I stopped trying. Instead, Daniel and I focused on moving forward. Together. We found a new apartment in Portland, away from all the noise. It wasn't easy starting over, but for the first time in a long while, I felt something close to peace. Little did I know. The wheel was already turning, because when you build lies, they eventually collapse. And when they do, they crush the person who built them first. Soft music rises, chapter ending beat. That night changed everything. But it was only the beginning of what karma had in store for my sister. The first few months after leaving my family felt like walking through fog. Every day bled into the next. I'd wake up, make coffee, sit by the window, and just stare. The world kept moving, but I couldn't. Daniel tried to pull me out of it. He'd say, "Let's go for a walk, Al, just for a few minutes." Sometimes I'd go, sometimes I'd pretend to be busy. He never pushed too hard. That's what I loved about him. He knew when to speak and when silence said more. We moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment in Portland. It wasn't fancy. Cracked walls, a squeaky floor, and a view of the street instead of the skyline. But it was ours. A place untouched by Rebecca's lies. In those quiet mornings, I started finding pieces of myself again. I'd paint, read old journals, even laugh at Daniel's stupid puns. Slowly the ache started to dull. But the silence also gave me time to think. About my sister, my mom, and everything I'd lost. I kept asking myself one question. How could she do that to me? Daniel told me to let it go. Some people, he said, can't stand to see others happy. Rebecca might be one of them. I wanted to believe he was wrong, that my sister wasn't cruel, just broken somehow. But deep down, I knew better. One afternoon, about 6 months later, I got a call from Mom. Her voice was distant, unsure. "Allison, how are you?" I hesitated. "I'm fine, Mom. You?" She sighed. "Rebecca's been going through some things. She, lost her job." My stomach turned, but I stayed quiet. "She's struggling to pay rent. I just thought you should know." Mom continued, her voice dipping into guilt. "Why?" I asked softly. "What do you expect me to do with that?" "I didn't mean anything by it," she said quickly. "I just thought maybe you'd want to talk to her." I almost laughed. "Talk to her? The same sister who accused my husband of cheating? Who tore my family apart?" "I can't, Mom," I said, keeping my tone calm. "I'm not ready." After that call, I couldn't stop thinking about Rebecca. I wondered if she was sitting alone somewhere, spinning new stories to make herself feel better. 2 weeks later, I found out I was right. An old coworker from my previous job messaged me on Facebook. She said, "Hey, just checking. Are you and Daniel separated? Rebecca told people you moved because of his affair." My blood ran cold. She was still spreading lies. Even after everything, Daniel saw the look on my face as I read the message. "She's still at it, isn't she?" he asked. "Yeah," I whispered. "She hasn't stopped." He took my hand. "Then let her burn herself out. You've got better things to build." He was right. So I focused on rebuilding. I got a job at a local publishing company as an assistant editor. The first paycheck felt like fresh air, proof that I could stand on my own again. Daniel and I made new friends, went to dinners, even laughed again without that shadow hovering over us. Still, sometimes I'd scroll through my old photos, birthdays, holidays, family dinners, and see Rebecca's face. I'd feel that twist of sadness again. I didn't miss her exactly. I missed what I thought we were. Time passed. 1 year became 2, and then one evening, everything shifted again. Daniel came home from work with a strange look on his face. "You should probably sit down," he said gently. "What is it?" He hesitated. "Your mom called me." "Why would she call you?" "She didn't want to upset you," he said carefully. "Rebecca's in trouble," I stared at him. "What kind of trouble?" "She lost her apartment. Apparently she's been couch hopping for weeks, and now Mom says she's homeless." The room went quiet. I didn't know what to feel. Anger, pity, confusion. I sat there for a long time, listening to the ticking clock. After a while, I said quietly, "So what happens now?" Daniel looked at me with those kind eyes of his. "That's up to you, Al. She wants to talk to you. Mom says she's been crying a lot. Says she's sorry." Sorry. That word hit like a stone dropped in still water. I didn't answer right away. I just got up, walked to the window, and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, my sister, the same person who had kicked me out of my own family, was now the one without a place to go. For a long moment, I didn't know whether to cry or to laugh. Life had a strange way of circling back, didn't it? Daniel came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. "You don't owe her anything," he whispered. "I know," I said quietly, "but I also can't pretend I don't care." That night, I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about the past, the laughter, the betrayal, the silence that followed. I thought about how easily love had turned into something sharp and painful. And as dawn crept through the blinds, I realized something. Maybe this was my chance to finally face her. Not as the sister she once was, but as the person she had become. I didn't know what I'd say, or if forgiveness was even possible. But I knew one thing for sure. The story between us wasn't over yet. And whatever came next, it would finally bring everything into the light. I didn't reach out to Rebecca immediately. Part of me still wanted to protect the fragile peace Daniel and I had built. But another part, some small, stubborn part, wanted to see her, to look her in the eye and ask why. A week later, I got the chance. It was a Sunday morning when my mom called. Her voice was shaking. "Allison, please come to the diner near my house. Rebecca's here. She needs to talk to you." I hesitated, staring at the phone. "Is she okay?" "She's not in good shape," Mom said softly. "Just come, please." I didn't tell Daniel right away. I just grabbed my coat, drove across town, and parked outside that little diner where Mom and I used to get breakfast every Sunday before everything fell apart. When I walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. Rebecca sat in a corner booth, her hair messy, her eyes swollen. The woman who once bragged about designer handbags and expensive apartments now looked empty. "Allison," she said, her voice cracking. "You came." I didn't sit down immediately. I just looked at her for a moment, taking in the sight of someone who had once been untouchable. Mom motioned for me to sit. "Please, just listen." So I did. Rebecca started talking. Her words tumbled out, about losing her job after a client complained, about falling behind on rent, about friends slowly disappearing when she had nothing to offer. Then she said it. "I know you hate me. I don't blame you, but I'm sorry, Allison. I really am." I looked down at my hands, twisting the napkin between my fingers. "Why now? Why say sorry after all this time?" Tears filled her eyes. "Because I finally understand what it feels like to have everyone turn their back on you. To be blamed for things you didn't do. I kept telling myself you deserved what happened. But I was wrong," her voice broke. "I ruined your life. And for what? Because I was jealous that you had something real, and I didn't. I wanted to be angry, to remind her of the nights I cried, the family she turned against me, the trust she shattered. But looking at her, at how life had stripped away all that arrogance, I couldn't find the energy for hate. Instead, I just asked, 'What do you want from me, Rebecca?' She hesitated. "I just need a place to stay, just for a while. I'll find a job soon, I promise." The words hung in the air like smoke. Mom looked between us nervously. "Allison, she's your sister. She just needs time." I could feel Daniel's voice in the back of my mind, calm and steady. You don't owe her anything. And he was right. I didn't. But I also remembered the girl who shared a room with me when we were little, who used to braid my hair before school, who once held my hand when I was scared of thunderstorms. That girl wasn't evil. She was just lost, so I said quietly, I'll think about it. Rebecca nodded, wiping her eyes. Thank you. That's more than I deserve. That night I told Daniel everything. He listened silently, his jaw tightening as I spoke. When I finished, he sighed and said, If you really want to help her, I'll support you, but promise me you'll protect your peace first. I promise, I said. But inside, I wasn't sure if peace and forgiveness could coexist. 2 days later, I called Rebecca. I told her she could stay, with conditions. No drama, no gossip, no talking about the past unless we both agree to it. You'll stay for 1 month, and then you'll find your own place. She agreed immediately, her voice trembling with gratitude. When she moved in, the air in the apartment changed. She tried to be polite, cooked dinner once, helped clean. But I could feel the tension sitting between us like an unspoken memory. One night, I caught her staring at a picture of Daniel and me on the shelf. You two look happy, she said softly. We are, I replied. She nodded slowly. I used to think happiness was something people handed to you. Turns out it's something you build, brick by brick. I never built anything. I just took. It wasn't an apology exactly, but it was close enough. As the weeks passed, Rebecca started finding small bits of work, helping at a bakery, cleaning houses. It wasn't much, but she showed up, worked hard, and came home exhausted but quiet. Then one evening, she handed me a folded piece of paper. It was a job offer from a small marketing firm downtown. They're giving me a chance, she said. It's part-time, but it's something. I smiled. That's good, Rebecca. I'm happy for you. She hesitated, then added, I wouldn't have made it without you. You didn't have to let me in, but you did. Something in her tone felt sincere. Maybe this was what healing looked like. Not loud apologies, but small, consistent acts of humility. A few weeks later, Mom came to visit. Seeing all three of us in the same room again felt strange, almost unreal. At one point, she pulled me aside and whispered, I'm proud of you, Allison. You could have turned your back on her, but you didn't. I looked at Rebecca, sitting quietly with a cup of tea in her hands. I didn't do it for her, I said. I did it for me. I didn't want to carry hate anymore. Mom smiled through tears. That's how you break the cycle, honey. Life slowly began to balance itself again. Rebecca moved out after 2 months, found a small studio, and started standing on her own 2 feet. We didn't talk every day, but when we did, the conversations were calm, even warm. She'd ask about work, about Daniel, about Mom's health. There was no mention of the past, just quiet gratitude in her tone. One night, as I was getting ready for bed, Daniel looked at me and said, You did the right thing, you know. Did I? I asked. He nodded. You gave her what she didn't give you, compassion. That's power, Allison. Real power, I smiled faintly. Maybe. Or maybe I just stopped fighting with ghosts. He kissed my forehead and turned off the light. And for the first time in years, I slept without the weight of resentment, pressing on my chest. I thought that was the end of the story. But life has a way of surprising you, because just when you think everything has settled, something always comes along to test what you've learned, and that test was still waiting for me in the final chapter. The day Lisa showed up at my doorstep, the sky looked heavy, like it was holding back a storm. I remember that moment vividly because it felt like life had come full circle, and I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When I opened the door, she stood there holding a small duffel bag. Her hair was messy, eyes sunken, and her lips trembled like she'd been walking for hours. For a few seconds, neither of us said anything. The silence between us carried every word we hadn't said in the past year. Hi, Emma, she whispered. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at her. The same sister who once called me a liar. who threw my clothes onto the front lawn and told me never to come back. Now she was standing in front of my apartment, looking like she had nowhere else to go. Finally, I managed to say, "Lisa, what are you doing here?" She took a shaky breath. I didn't know where else to go. "Please, just hear me out." I hesitated. My mind was racing. Part of me wanted to shut the door, to tell her that I owed her nothing. But another part, the one that still remembered her laughter when we were kids, the way she used to braid my hair, couldn't. So I stepped aside. "Come in." She walked in slowly, like someone entering sacred ground. I made her tea, mostly because I didn't know what else to do. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the same kind of scene we'd shared so many times before, but this time the air was thick with unspoken pain. After a long pause, she finally spoke. "He left me. I didn't ask who. I already knew. Mark?" I said softly. She nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "He cheated on me. For months. The same way he accused you of trying to." Her voice cracked. "He told everyone it was my fault. He said I pushed him away, and now I have nowhere to go." I stared down at my cup. The tea had gone cold. There was a part of me that wanted to feel satisfied. Like maybe this was karma finally doing its job. But looking at her, broken and hollow, I felt something else entirely. Sadness. Because the truth was, I never wanted revenge. I just wanted peace. She looked up at me, eyes red and tired. "I'm so sorry, Emma. I was wrong about everything. I believed him because I didn't want to lose him, not realizing I was losing you instead." Tears filled my eyes before I could stop them. "You didn't just lose me, Lisa. You destroyed me." She nodded, crying harder. "I know, and I'll never forgive myself. But please, I need somewhere to stay, just for a while." I leaned back, trying to collect my thoughts. Her apology was genuine. I could feel it. But forgiveness isn't something you just hand out like spare change. It takes time, patience, and a heart that's ready to let go. After a long silence, I said, "You can stay here. For now." Her face softened with relief and she whispered, "Thank you." That night, as she slept on the couch, I sat by my window, watching the rain pour down. My mind replayed everything. The lies, the accusations, the pain. But also the laughter we once shared. The childhood memories buried beneath the years of bitterness. In the weeks that followed, Lisa started rebuilding her life piece by piece. She got a part-time job, began therapy, and even offered to help around my place. I kept my distance at first, still unsure if I could ever trust her again. But slowly she started showing a side of herself I hadn't seen in years. Humble, honest, real. One night, as we were cleaning the dishes together, she said, "You know, I used to think having a man meant security. But now I realize family, real family, is the only security that lasts." I looked at her, then smiled faintly. "Took you long enough to figure that out." She laughed softly, and for the first time in a long time, it didn't sound forced. It took months, maybe even a year, for the resentment to fade. But eventually I forgave her, not because she deserved it, but because I deserved peace. Holding on to that anger only kept me tied to the person I used to be, the one she hurt. Now, she's living on her own again. We still talk every few days, and sometimes we have coffee like we used to. Just sisters, no walls between us. Looking back, I realized that life has a strange way of balancing things. The truth always finds its way to the surface, no matter how deeply someone tries to bury it. If there's one thing I learned from all of this, it's that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means choosing to move forward without letting the past define you. Family should be about love, not control, and I finally learned that. And if you've ever been hurt by someone close to you, I want you to know this. It's okay to walk away. It's okay to protect your peace, because sometimes loving yourself means letting go of the people who broke you, even if they share your blood. This was my story. And if it taught me anything, it's that pain can destroy you, or it can shape you into someone stronger. The choice is yours.